Buonasera, welcome back to our Italian sessions. This is not exactly a lesson, so I will not be covering any specific topic. However, as the title say, I'm going to give you some advice on how to practice your Italian. Obviously, this can be um, used with any language really, or anything that you are studying. However, we are talking about Italian here. So let me just share these documents which I have prepared. We've got a list of things that, a list of ideas. Some of them I may have already mentioned before. So as I said, this is advice. So it's called consigli, consigli per praticare l'italiano. So once you have obviously follow some lessons, either in person or online, or just by yourself following apps. Something very useful, as I said, I may have said this before, but it really is very useful, and I can see that when students do it, it makes a big difference. So, one very important thing is organizzare gli appunti. So, organize, sort out your notes. Um, so, for example, one way of doing it is when you've got so many new words that you've learned. So, you've got pages and pages of words or sentences. So, why don't you organize them according to what they are? So, you can put all the nouns in all together in one page or folder. So you have a folder anyway. All the adjectives again together, all the verbs. You can separate the verbs, the regular verbs from the irregular verbs. You can have subgroups and have the groups in are, ere, and ire. You can have those verbs that conjugate like capire, finire like isco, isci, for example. And you can go as in detail as you want. For example, your page or folder of nouns, you can just write the noun itself. I don't know, libro, for example, or you can be, especially later on, or in fact, even at the beginning, that it helps you memorizing the different forms you can see the book, this word in. For example, it could be singular or plural. So what you can do, instead of just writing libro, you can write also the plural, libri. And you can add some more details like the article. You can write un libro, or you can write il libro, and then in the plural, I libri. So when you go and look for a word, obviously libro is just an example, you can find a complete context almost that you can use it in. So it's already, it's like ready to be used. So not just the noun itself, but accompanied also by the article. I said this is just an example. With a verb, you can just have the infinitive of a verb. For example, you can have the verb dormire. I'm just looking at my dog here, sleeping. Dormire. So you can just write dormire to sleep. However, especially at the beginning, you can also conjugate the whole verb. Io dormo, tu dormi, lui, lei dorme. Noi dormiamo, voi dormite, loro dormono. So, or it gives you, it reminds you of the endings. Or, for example, if you're separating, if you have different folders for the groups in are, ere, ire, at the top, for example, you can put your endings at the top. So you have o, I, in this case, if it's a verb in ire o ere, it's like dormire, and then diamo, then whichever ate, ite, ete, and ono, ano, whichever the group is. And then you can just have the list of the verbs on the page. Um, so this is, yeah, how to, again, just ideas. You can have a page or folder with adjectives. So adjectives you can separate and have on one page or folder. Those adjectives, they only end in O when they are the default masculine. So you can put the different for endings. For example, bello, then you can add the other endings, which is a for bella, I for belli, the plurals, e for belle, masculine and singular. And then so the other group of adjectives, the ones ending in e. So this is, yeah, how to organize your notes. When you organize the notes, otherwise, in fact, it does organize your mind as well. Otherwise, you just end up with so many pieces of paper, so many pages, and in every piece of paper, there will be a bit of a mess, a bit of a chaos, which makes sense at the beginning, but the more you add, the less it will make sense. It will not be helpful. As I said, when you know where to find things, so you organize it in your own way, you know where to find it, and it already makes a big difference in your mind because the chaos, if you have chaotic nodes, that will be reflected in your mind. Instead, when you know where to find things, you already have, again, the order of your nodes will be reflected in your mind as well. When you know where to find something, then it's a lot easier. Anyway, that was a very long first practice. Something else that you can do is do translations. So find any text, any um, a bit of a book, a bit of an article, anything you find online, few lines, half a page, as much as you want or as little as you want. Translate it. So from your language, we assume it is English. Translate it into Italian. Doing not with obviously not with one of those translation apps. You have to take each word and do your own translation, like a manual translation. You go and find each word. You go and find how you conjugate the verbs that you find, the nouns. How do you translate them in the specific context? After you've done your translation, double check is as if it was as if you were doing it like for example on an exam. You're not going to be able to do your translation online. You have to use maybe a dictionary online, but not like an app that can translate it for you afterwards, unless you have somebody, which could be a teacher or somebody that you know who speaks fluent Italian, then you can go in one of those apps and perhaps, so you put the whole text and then you can double check and see um, if you have made, for example, some mistakes. Obviously will not be the same. However, there will be some mistakes that will be very, very obvious, and other things that maybe they will give you some ideas of what you can do, what you could have done. It doesn't mean that yours it is wrong. It can just be different, but it helps anyway, as I said, um, especially when it comes to more obvious things. Then you can coniugare verbi, so conjugate verbs, in a sense, verb drills. When you have new verbs, write it down, write the infinitive, and do the conjugation. Write it down many, many times until you memorize it, and then repeat it. And don't just write it, because as the next point, as I'm going to say for the next point, when you say something loud, you will memorize it a lot easier. So verb drills is one very useful exercise. Old school, because it's repeating, but repeating is the secret of learning something. So next one is leggere ad alta voce. So read aloud. Take any text, again, a passage, whatever. It could be anything as long as it is in Italian. And read. Practice your pronunciation. Because it's always easier with everything, really. When you just see it, it's always easy to think that we are able to do something, to remember something. Try and read it instead. It's like reading is like doing exercise yourself instead of watching somebody doing it. And because you are um, really using, it's like using the muscles almost. So you are connecting the memory to the fact that you're actually moving your mouth, your body really to say those words. So it really is a proper physical practice. And then you can hear yourself. And some people don't want to hear themselves, but it needs to be done. It's like when you're doing exercises and you look at yourself in the mirror. If you look at yourself in the mirror, you can see if you're doing something wrong, or so you can correct your posture, for example, your position. It really is exactly the same thing. And there are apps again where you can listen to a sentence and you can repeat it. So you can double check the pronunciation, or not necessarily just the whole sentence. Even Google Translate, if you're not sure about a word that you have in this passage, uh, you can, as a Google Translate is just one way. I'm sure there are some other apps or things online, and just double check the pronunciation of something if you're not sure, especially those combinations of letters that you find a little bit more difficult to remember. And then you can have Italiano in sottofondo. So you can have a radio, TV, if you have an Italian channel. You can have like an audio book in the background. So you get to use, it's almost a passive absorption of the language. It doesn't mean that you're going to learn it just like that. However, it is, as I said, it just becomes familiar. The sound of it becomes familiar. And maybe sometimes you concentrate and you listen and hear uh, some words, some sentences. Other times you just leave it there in the background. It becomes something familiar. Um, and passively, we can learn a lot passively as well. Um, or even, for example, if it works for you when you're driving, concentrate on the of the driving, obviously. But if you have something plain and maybe even if it's the same thing, gradually you will understand more and more. Something else that you can do is scrivere un paragrafo, write a paragraph, what have you done that week, or what you think about whatever it is, what you've done that day, what you are going to do next month, or about anything at all. So write a paragraph, so this is more proactive, more practice, because you're thinking, you're creating from your own memories or um, imagination, whatever it is. So write in Italian, straight into Italian, not in your language, and then translate. That is not a translation. This is it's a different exercise. Write immediately, directly in Italian. Read it afterwards. See if you, it's very normal to find after you've written, you read it again and you find something, say, oh, how did I even write that, made the mistake? So you can correct it yourself, and then again, you can double check with one of those apps online. And then you can also find, and again, it can be, the next one is ascoltare un dialogo, to listen to a dialogue, which could be from a film or any language resources, teaching or learning resources that you can find online. Listen to this dialogue many times. And how much can you understand every time that you listen to it? And one thing very important, I think, is do not try and understand every little word. The most important thing is to understand more or less what are they talking about. So you can start very general. Otherwise, it's very, you just put yourself, you put too much pressure on yourself. Very general, what are they talking about? So you can actually pick anything that you have no idea what they're talking about. And gradually, as I said, you can understand more and more. If it is a dialogue that, two or more people are talking to each other, see also, listen to the emotions in the voice, unless it's one of those artificial sounding dialogues or conversation. But yeah, listen to the emotions, and so you can see or you can pick up a little bit more the mood, for example. And so again, concentrate on whichever words you can hear at the beginning. Don't worry if you miss a few. Don't concentrate on what you don't understand. Concentrate on what you do understand. Um, so this, I said that just some is just some advice. In Italiano, plural advices, we say. You can give just one advice, un consiglio, or more than one consigli. So these are consigli per praticare l'italiano. And then obviously everybody has their own way of learning. So feel free if you want to write in the comments how do you practice your Italian? How do you try and memorize words and improve the language by yourself or with your different methods, different ways they work for you? Or what would you suggest to others? So as I'm here now talking about learning, as I said in more than once, actually, I do private tuition. So my lessons, obviously, will not be just me talking about grammar the whole time. That is what I do here because I'm by myself. There is no one that can actually ask a question in real time. So lessons, you can have a little idea from the very beginning in the course for beginners, especially if you're on the playlist. So a topic is introduced. And obviously it depends on the level. Is this some basic grammar? Is this some vocabulary? And then, so it is explained, and then, or in fact, a little bit, we can read, for example, repeat certain things, explain what you're actually saying, how everything works, and then always practice. So practice all the different if there are new verbs, practice different conjugations and try and use them in different contexts and have always conversation about all this. And so this is the very, very basic. However, something which I do all the time at the beginning of every lesson is just a spontaneous chat, which is more natural. And it is good for every student to realize also how much can they say, how much they can produce, really improvising without preparing. And it is anyway a good idea to prepare a few words. If you say, oh, I'm gonna talk about something that I did and I definitely don't know the words, so you can prepare a few words and then you go in the conversation and you never know where the conversation leads to. So there will be, after a while, there will be some words that you do need and you don't have. And obviously, I will provide you with those words. and the conversation continues. So that is a very natural way to learn and to practice. So it's not everything already ready on the paper, so that you can read it and repeat it a few times, and that is it. Conversing, no matter how small or the vocabulary is, you learn every lesson, you learn new words, and every lesson you have the opportunity to practice everything that you have done until then, because you will need to think about the endings of the nouns, the endings of the adjectives, which article do we need here? How do I conjugate this verb? And you realize, and I also notice where are your weaknesses, for example, or in the sense, in fact, do I need to revise a certain thing? Let's see it together now. Or let me give an exercise so you can practice it for next time and refresh. And so refresh and revise certain things. So it's always very varied. So this is not just me talking and explaining grammar, which is, I said, this was I do here. But because it's more like a passive public. However, when I have somebody in front, relatively in front, but on the other side of the screen, then it is a two-way conversation. So a lot of questions, especially asking questions, which is always one of the most difficult things to do. So it's easier to write sentences, but when there is a conversation, then you have to ask questions as well. So that's another exercise that we do. We read articles or little stories, let's say, and there are always extra information that you may want to know. So that's a way of practicing again, remembering, and everything makes more sense. So that is how you learn a language, by speaking it and by again improvise and not be scared of just being put on the spot in a way. And it actually helps you being more flexible, not having a sentence ready-made. So you have to change maybe the way you want to say it. Obviously, I always give suggestions or ideas. Can you say it in a different way? Try something else. What about if and when you are stuck? So as I said, if you are interested in a private tuition, get in touch wherever you are in the world. It doesn't make a difference because we can just find a time and a day which is convenient for both. Normally I do one-to-one tuition, however, also very small groups are welcome. I would say maximum 3 people. 2 is a good number because you can also practice things between the 2 people, but 3 is also okay. Not too many because then you get too many faces on the screen. And 4 is an even number. So I said no more than 3 people plus my face on the screen. Right. So hopefully this has helped both the advice and if you are thinking the lessons would be just my face repeating the usual grammar that you can listen to in the videos. And instead, said then, in fact, said feel free to get in touch if you're interested, and we can always have a chat first, a little trial lesson first, and then we can take it from there. I will say bye for now, and I will see you on our next session or lesson. Bye bye. Ciao.